Derick, I want to do better. I've failed over and over again with my New Year's resolutions. Can you help me set some realistic goals, and where do we go from there? So let's just pretend I'm a client.
Yes, for sure. Great question. So, you know about the cliche January 1st. You've all done it. Maybe you accomplished some things, maybe you didn't, but I would highly recommend to grab your phone, go to your calendar, and then you would go to the 15th of the month that's coming up. So today's November 28th. So we would go to December 15th. And on the calendar, you're basically going to create a date and block time that says by now you should be. So you're going to title that. You're not blocking off the entire day. You could block off 5 minutes, but the intent is the 15th of every month, you're going to get a notification that pops up on your phone that says by now you should be.
Welcome to the Natural Health Matters podcast, where it's all about maximizing your health potential so that you can look and feel your best at any age. I'm your host, David Sandstrom, and this is episode number 129. Hey, before we get started today, I'd like you to know that I want to get to know my audience better, and I would enjoy having a one-on-one conversation with you, about 10 minutes over Zoom. If you'd be interested in that, go to my website, davidsandstrom.com/coffee talk, and you can pick a date and a time and schedule a 10-minute Zoom call with me one-on-one. I look forward to hearing from you. Today we have on the show Derick Johnson. Derick is a U.S. Army veteran turned life coach and trainer. He's a mental toughness expert, and he helps people take control of their mind and body so they can thrive, not just survive. Derick, welcome to Natural Health Matters.
Thank you for having me. It's a pleasure being here, David.
Well, really, it's a pleasure having you on, Derick. I think we're going to have a lot to talk about. You know, I generally don't talk about the date that these go live because they are evergreen and pretty much timeless. But we're approaching the new year, and this episode is going to be coming out in late December. And I think a lot of people are going to have New Year's resolutions on their minds. So I'd like to talk a little bit about what you know about mental toughness and how we can set realistic goals and actually stick with them and attain them. I think you'd have a lot to say on that in that area. But before we get started, I just want to say one thing. I did an episode a few weeks ago. It was episode number 121, and I talked about the 9 pillars of health. And when it comes to the mental emotional game, I talk about being your own MVP. And M in that episode, I said it stood for mindset. But I'd like to kind of transition that because I don't think that sums up the whole message of what we're doing with our mental game as well as mental toughness does. Because with mental toughness, we're really taking control of our thought lives, right? And I think that's really more precisely what we're talking about here in the message. So give us a little bit of your background story, Derick. How did you come to doing what you're doing today?
Great question. So honestly, growing up with highly disciplined parents, my father was a farm boy. My father's from Starkville, Mississippi, and he was in the U.S. Army for 20 plus years. My mother, she's German, and she grew up in the city in Nuremberg. Americans would say Nuremberg, Deutschland, okay. Nuremberg, Germany. Okay. So my father's African-American farm boy. My mother's German, and she was a city girl. And they were both the oldest of multiple siblings. So they had to play both parent roles while their mothers were working. And so they grew up quick and they saw a lot of tragedy growing up. They both grew up poor and then became highly successful. But along with that journey, all their energy went into work and providing for the family. So they really didn't have time or the resources, I guess, at the time to do a lot of the inner work of healing trauma from their childhood and everything. Yeah. So there was a shift when I was about 11 years old. That's when they only at night, it never affected their professional life, but only at night, once the guests would leave, they would start to drink a little bit more. And then as the months went by, it started getting really dark in the home. And then the very next morning, it'd be like, hey, you want to have breakfast? Want to go eat lunch? And so 1 year of that happening, I realized at first it was a shock. I was 11 years old. Then at 12, I said, you know what? I can see it in his and her eyes that they're not looking at me. They're looking through me. Something happened in their past that they're just releasing. So super positive people, really well known around the world, just really connected, great people, but just personally, there's just some things that they didn't overcome. And so from the age of 12, I made a promise to myself that I would not let their drunk words or the bully at school or anyone else that is bullying me physically, mentally, or emotionally control my reaction to things or the way that I view myself. So controlling my reaction, fitness and faith were my first 2 things that I stepped into. Fitness, number 1, because I was the skinny kid. I was scrawny. I was bullied at school. I was very light then because we lived in Germany. So we moved to Florida. People didn't know what I was. Or like, is he Mexican? Is he this? Is he white? Is he? So like, we moved to Pensacola, Florida, and it's like right by Alabama. So some of the mentality is a little bit closed-minded there. So it was a
Mm.
culture shock for me living in Germany as a child and then coming to America. And so
How
I was
old were you
stressed
then?
out. I was I was 11 years old. So we
Okay.
moved to the States when I was 11.
Yeah, formative year.
Oh yes. So with everything happening at home and then getting bullied at school and all that, I just said enough is enough. And so I dove deep into fitness. I picked up Arnold Schwarzenegger's bodybuilding encyclopedia, Bruce Lee's information, men's health, all the information that I could think of.
Mhm.
And then within about 2 years, I transformed my body into a fit athlete. And all my teachers, friends, former bullies were like, "Who are you? Like, did you have a twin? Like, you used to stutter, you used to sit in the back of the class, be scared, and just all these things." But I did that for myself because I knew that controlling my body would help me to control my mind. So fitness was step one, and step two was getting into my faith. And so it was more so the family situation was preparing me for life and anything else personally. But I really fell in love with helping empower other people. It
Mhm.
started just in a fitness standpoint for performance, for physique or nutrition. But the older I got in my time in the US Army and in college, I fell in love with psychology. And that's what opened the gates for life coaching. Because what
Mhm.
happened is a lot of clients that I work with months or years later, after the fact that we trained together, whether it was in person or online, I would see their posts or see them in person and they went backwards. But I felt that I took it personal because I did not give them the mental tools that they needed to get rid of those old patterns, whether that was limiting beliefs, traumas, bad relationship with food, etc. So nowadays, that's what I strictly do is help people identify those patterns that aren't serving them, and then we break those so they can thrive and not just
Excellent.
survive.
That's really
So
awesome. Oh, I love it. What a
the
great
self
story.
work connected with everything.
Yeah, thanks for sharing all that. That was really, really inspirational. One of the things you said a lot there, but one of the things that stood out for me is that you said that you recognized that when your parents were talking with you and using harsh words, they weren't really criticizing you. They were dealing with their own trauma and their own past.
Yes.
And I think I'm thinking about the Bible verse, 2 Corinthians 10:5, that says we're taking every thought captive to the obedience of Christ. And that's kind of what you did. You took those thoughts captive and you said, "No, I'm going to choose not to take this personally. This is their issue,
Exactly.
not mine." And I'm assuming you were pretty young when you came to that
Oh yes.
realization, right?
Yes.
That's I mean, hats off to you for doing that, because that's tough for a young person to do, to separate what they see going on, what they hear going on, from their your parents' true heart towards you. So that's
Yes.
pretty profound insight right there.
I appreciate it. And one of the skills that I feel that I got, or a gift, some people call it a gift, was discernment. I feel that everyone that's gone through trauma to whatever level of extent that was, we're all given a gift. And discernment was mine because I was just that quiet kid that was hyper aware of the room. Because at home, I was used to getting hit, stuff thrown at me, a plate, just so
Mm,
being that kid, I was just hyper vigilant. It made me
yeah.
good at sports, it made me good in the military. But the best skill was reading an individual or reading a group of people or anywhere in public. So, an example, I was always the dad of my friend groups, just as I am to this day, but we could be at a birthday dinner and I could tell you every person in the room, the server, and just like really have a picture photographic memory of the room and just make sure that everybody's good. And it all stemmed from the childhood. And the older I got, I realized that that's why I could speak to anybody, no matter what level that they were at, because I could feel their energy. I could see if they've been through trauma or quote unquote hell in the past or currently going through it. So dealing with my own trauma and overcoming it just gave me a different viewpoint. So I was able to perspective hop. And so that's definitely the gift that I feel that I was given. And then one of my favorite skills that I was able to work on was perspective hopping. So an example could be a stressful situation is currently happening. The individual could think of their version 10.0, what his or her characteristics and traits are, and see what piece of advice would he or she give their current self, and then their current self looking back at their younger self saying, you know what, I'm proud of that young person because we've come so far. instead of just being stuck in the current moment of the stress, anxiety of whatever's happening, being
Yeah.
able to zoom out for a moment at different perspectives and then look at it from a faith standpoint. And then when they go to make a decision, they can make the decision much calmer, more strategic, and with confidence rather than just reacting to people, situations, or emotions. They can just zoom out for a moment.
Yeah.
So I realized the older I got, I didn't know what shadow work was. I didn't know what, I never heard of those things till I was like 17 to 19. And I was like, I was doing this at 12. I don't know where it came from. And the more I was learning about psychology, I was like, you got to be kidding me. I've been doing this forever. Nobody taught it, but it was very interesting. So I do feel again that trauma gives people gifts and skills that they don't realize they have until they get older.
Hmm. Well, I believe God won't waste your pain. He'll
Oh,
use that
yes.
for the good. Romans 8:28, all things work together for good for those that love the Lord. And it sounds like you've done a lot of that work. I want to bring out this one quote from my book, Christian's Guide to Holistic Health. I quote Chuck Swindoll. He's a pastor and he authored 47 books. And he says this about what happens to us. He says, "I am convinced that life is 10% what happens to me and 90% of how I react to it. And so it is with you. We are in charge." And that's kind of the bottom line here with mental toughness, isn't it? And it sounds like
Oh,
you've got a
yes.
lot of experience, a lot of years um, thinking and acting that way. So tell us a little bit more about what shadow work is. That's an interesting term.
Yes, for sure. So, in regards to psychology, shadow work is looking at our traits, starting off with things that we know that we could get rid of. So, one of the first things that I do with any client, or even just if I'm speaking to somebody in public, is I ask them to ask themselves the question, what is something that I could get rid of or replace with something better that will help me make more progress? And at first, it's hard for people, but I always start with what we consume. Maybe they drink too much sugar. Maybe they eat too many complex carbs, whatever the case may be, but starting with what they eat and drink.
Hmm.
And then they can slowly go, okay, what about psychologically? Well, I react this way to family. I'm usually angry and really tense during the holidays. Or this person drinks a lot at the end of their workday or work week. And they know if they slow down, they could wake up early and work out. So,
Hmm.
whatever it is for that particular person, identifying what can they get rid of first that's going to help them make more progress. So doing it in this direction is way more effective than changing a schedule, adding to the routine, or doing something new. If that person is already stressed and overwhelmed, anything new, even just new information, they're not going to be able to absorb it or use it until they first get rid of some things. So it's the concept of getting rid of things so better things can come into their life, because usually we're holding on to things, whether it's a bad relationship with food that started from bullying as a child, or if it's with alcohol, or it could even be scrolling.
Hmm.
Everybody is addicted to their phone. Even if we say we're not, we all have an auto response loop.
Right.
So, auto response loop example is the person is bored and they open up an app, then they jump to another app, then they go to the other app, then they go to the other, and then they say, oh, it's been 20 minutes. What am I doing?
Right.
Everybody does that to an extent. It might be 2 minutes or 20 minutes,
Or
but
2 hours.
yeah, exactly. Or 2 hours. So if they can identify that, they can just be neutral about it. So we're not angry at ourselves. We're more so like, hey, I'm very hyper aware that I have this thing. Let me do less of that, or time it where they say, I have a 2 hour window, I have a break, then they can do
Hmm.
whatever they want. But
Hmm.
it's more so the self awareness. Everything stems back to
Yeah.
the self awareness
Yeah.
without the self judgment.
Well, that's really interesting, and I see some parallels there on how I did my health coaching when I had my health coaching practice, and I try to communicate this on the podcast as well, and that is our bodies know how to thrive. We don't have to teach ourselves how to do their jobs. We have a God given built in intelligence, and our default setting is health. So if we're not experiencing the health we want, there's some obstacle in the way. There's something that's getting in the way of the body doing what it already knows how to do, and that is to thrive. So the practitioner's job is to help you identify what those obstacles are and get them out of the way, just like you were talking about with those unproductive thoughts, and
Yes.
then identify as many health building or health enhancing factors as we can and bring those in to our lives. And we're talking about lifestyle habits there, but what we're talking about in this episode is mental toughness and being the gatekeeper of our minds, saying, no, that's not a productive thought. We're going to set that one aside. I'm going to replace it with something more productive. Is that what you're trying? Is that what your message is?
Oh, yes, 100%. Just being
Hmm.
hyper aware of that and catching ourselves before. we catch ourselves after the fact,
Hmm.
after they ate that thing, after they had the outburst at the birthday dinner because they're just boiling from work. Whatever the thing is
Hmm.
just catching themselves in the initial moment when they're about to make the decision to do something,
Yeah.
pausing, breathing, and just assessing. And it sounds so simple and straightforward, but it's more so a pattern interrupter. Everybody does something on autopilot. So if we can just pause, why am I grabbing my phone right now? I need to respond to these 6 emails. That's all I'm going to do. Then I'm going to lay it down.
Right.
Or, hey, I have a 10-minute break. I'm just going to scroll, get entertained, and laugh. And then I'm done after the 10 minutes. So
Yeah.
hyper intentional about what we're doing.
Yeah. So, it all sounds kind of simple when you put it like we just described, but in practice, it's hard to do. So, why do you think so many people struggle with their thought lives and they never really get a real good handle on things?
I think the biggest reason currently in the climate that we're in is people don't have control of their attention. And everything and everyone and every app and every advertisement and every, if they have kids, if they have pets, everybody and everything wants their attention. Politicians, celebrities, agendas,
Hmm.
media. And so people's attention span is lower than ever in human history. So we're all distracted. Email, TikTok, that. Oh, we have a dinner at 6, and we got to, and then I go to the gym. I need to go to Publix, and I need to go to Target. And then everybody's just like spazzy all over the place. But the individuals that can have controlled focus for a set amount of time, they're calmer, they're more confident, and they make great progress towards whatever their goals are, personally or professionally. So I do feel that the biggest thing is lack of attention span and lack of control of their focus. Because if they're working on something, a notification could pop up on their computer or on their phone. And next thing you know, they get lost in what that notification was. Another notification comes in, and then 30 minutes goes by, and like, what was I even working on? Like, I'm behind on my work tasks. So they're trying to catch up, wondering how they even got to these places
Yeah.
because of the notifications. So definitely the lack of control of their focus and their attention.
In the podcasting world, we call that shiny object syndrome.
Oh, yeah.
you know, I'm working on this new software. I just got, oh, wait a minute. Someone has some other software. Let me go check that one. There's another one over here. So, and then
Oh,
you
yeah.
get nothing done because you're just checking out all the new software. But yeah, so focus is a big deal, right? So, do you have any practical tips on how to increase your focus, increase your attention span?
Yes, for sure. So before somebody does the Pomodoro technique, so the Pomodoro technique, it could be 20 minutes on, 10 minutes off, 30 minutes on, 5 minutes off. There's other variations people can do. But before they try like a whole technique, I would recommend that they ask themselves, what time of the day am I better at this task? So if it comes to reading, we'll just use reading as an example. Some individuals, if they wake up and try to read, they'll fall asleep.
Yeah.
Others, they love it. They absorb and regurgitate everything. So
Hmm.
for person one, midday or afternoon might be better, or after a workout because their body's relaxed, their mind is calm, and they're open to absorb. So if they can look at several tasks, so one could be reading, two could be a creative workflow. Maybe he or she is a writer, does copywriting, is trying to write a book, writes emails, advertisements, whatever the case may be. But maybe between the hours of 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., they're just in that zone of flow state because they're like, I've had breakfast, they worked out, nobody needs them in that window, and they just get so much work done.
Hmm.
But that right there, if somebody can be transparent with themselves and identify when they do things best, they can capitalize on that. And not every day is going to be perfect. It can't always be at that exact time. But if it comes to the major chunk of your work, I would highly recommend they choose that. So something that I do is every morning I'll get up at 4, and it's more so I need time for me. It's not like a challenge, and just been doing that for most of my life. But I love working out between 5 or 5:30, and then by 7 a.m. I've already planned the day. I already checked on clients. I already did this and that. I walk my dog, ready to talk to my girlfriend. Just I'm set and proactive for the day, and
Hmm.
then the day is easy. If I
Yeah.
don't do those things in the morning, then I'm just annoyed and pissed off. I'm like reactive to everybody. Everybody needs me at 6:30. It's like
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so.
I'm with you. I'm a morning person myself. I'll get up generally about 5, and that's my time. Before the sun comes up, before everybody else is awake in the home, and that's when I do my most productive work. Is early in the morning. I start off with my devotion, and then I'll jump into doing some podcasting work or some writing, and that's what I found works for me. Now, there's my wife is more of an evening person. She does her best work around 10 p.m. And
All right.
I find that hard to fathom, but we're just different people.
Oh
you
yeah,
know,
exactly. And
and
that's the best thing about it. The listeners can hear and they can identify. Maybe they hate the mornings, or maybe
mhm,
physically they're just like useless in the morning. I have some
mhm,
friends that I recommend what time to work out or eat, and they're just like, dude, I can't even function. Then I say, hey, no worries. Don't force yourself. If afternoon's better once you've had some meals, then that's better. For me in the afternoon, like my workouts aren't as effective. I'm not tired, but I like to kickstart the morning. But the best thing is just on a personal level creating and structuring their perfect routine,
mhm.
which fits them,
Yeah.
their energy levels, if they have kids, if they work remote, if they're dodging traffic, whatever the case may be. But
Mhm,
it's super interesting to see people that have mastered their own routine. And it's usually something very straightforward and simple.
mhm.
Because
That's really
nowadays,
cool.
I was just going to say, nowadays with information overload, people are comparing their routine to somebody else's and they feel like they're not doing enough because now it's like ice bath, now you got to get in the sauna, now you got to do that, now you got to do Wim Hof breathing, now you got to do this, and they're just like, do I need this, do I not need that, am I not doing enough? And it's like, all
You
right,
know, it's
just
so
choose one or
funny.
two.
It's so funny you mentioned ice bath because I was just going to talk about the one of the ways I can increase my focus is by spending some time in my sauna and then jumping in the cold plunge. I just got a cold plunge about a month ago, and I
Nice.
really enjoy that routine, and it really increases my mental clarity. And man, I get out of that tub, and I feel like, oh, I can conquer anything right now. You know, if I
Oh
can do
yeah.
that, I can do anything. it's
Oh yeah.
it does something in the nervous system that really is positive. But I'm not saying you have to go out and spend a couple grand on a cold plunge right now. A cold shower can do the trick.
Oh
Depending
yeah.
on time of year where you're located. But yeah, that's good stuff. So let's talk specifically a little bit more about goal setting here. People are tuning in saying, "Yeah, I could use some help this time around with my New Year's resolutions." So, how would you talk to someone who came to you as a client and said, Derick, I want to do better. I've failed over and over again with my New Year's resolutions. Can you help me set some realistic goals and where do we go from there? So let's just pretend I'm a client.
Yes, for sure, great question. So you know about the cliche January 1st, you've all done it. Maybe you accomplished some things, maybe you didn't, but I would highly recommend to grab your phone, go to your calendar, and then you would go to the 15th of the month that's coming up. So today's November 28th, so we would go to December 15th. And on the calendar, you're basically going to create a date and block time that says by now you should be. So you're going to title that. You're not blocking off the entire day. You could block off 5 minutes, but the intent is the 15th of every month, you're going to get a notification that pops up on your phone that says by now you should be. And you're going to fill in the blank with two things, one thing for personal, one thing for professional. So yes, we have more than two goals, but if in the middle of the month, every month, that notification lights up and it says, by now you should be 5 pounds down. By now you should be XYZ with real estate. By now you should bought the ring for your potential fiance, like whatever it is. But the interesting thing is one of three things will happen. Every time that notification goes off, they'll say, you know what? I'm behind, but I have the rest of the month to work on this thing. Perfect. Anxiety is not high. They're just focused. They say I have the rest of the month. Example two, I'm right on track. I feel great. Example three, I'm ahead of the game. This is awesome. Maybe I need to create another thing. But having a mid-month check-in, it psychologically it feels like the 15th. You have a personal secretary that texts you the 15th of every month. Hey, David. Hey, Derick. By now you should be. And here are your two things. But no matter what the outcome is of the three examples, the person feels calm and in control and has clarity, opposed to waiting until the holidays come around and family asks, hey, how's your little thing going, or how's that and that going? They're like, yeah, what's in that cake, is that pecan, is that they change the subject because they know the reality is they didn't work on it. But
Right.
we're trying to avoid those situations to feel embarrassment, but it's more so clarity and control.
hmm
If they have
So
control, they feel
so
better.
I think what I hear you saying is want to keep things in the front of mind. We want to
Yes.
keep this goal that we have. We don't want to just let it get lost, fall by the wayside. We want to keep this in the forefront of our thinking, and a reminder is good to help us bring it back into focus. I think that's what you're saying.
Yes, 100%.
Yeah.
Because with the normal New Year's resolution, somebody would write it in a notebook, and that notebook probably ends up in drawer number 7 behind stuff, or it gets
Yeah.
dusty and they haven't touched it until December comes around and Christmas is there, they're like, wait, where's that notebook? Oh yeah, I forgot I wrote half of
Yeah.
these. Goodness, I'm gonna do that next year.
I see one potential downfall here is, let's say, hey, Derek, I need to lose 100 pounds. And my goal is to lose 10 pounds by the 15th. And what if I come up short? I'm going to feel condemned. I'm going to feel awful about myself. What would you say to that person?
That's a good question. So what I would say is, hey, that's an interesting analogy, but the person that you create on the way to that goal is going to override what the scale says. As in, if you train consistently for 2 months straight, 5 days a week, that inner confidence of knowing that you showed up for yourself at the same time at the gym, home workout, whatever it was, hyper aware of tracking their food, hydration, taking their supplements, and all that. If they're super consistent with that, that consistency will build his confidence where he will less likely care about the exact number on the scale. It's still in the back of his mind, but
Mm,
he's going to feel the mental, the physical, and the spiritual progress and just be proud of himself. So that self pride and confidence will override 185 on the scale or 187. They'll say, you know what? I'm not at 185. I still have 5 more pounds to go, but I feel so good because of these 20 positive benefits that I have. I don't have that one thing, but these 20 benefits override that. If this 185 comes, awesome. If it doesn't, also awesome because I have these positive traits because they're showing up for themselves.
mm,
But it's more so the analogy of someone who has not been disciplined and consistent actually doing it for more than 2 months, inside and out, something shifts and they're just like, I've been wasting so much potential. I feel amazing and they feel unstoppable.
mm.
And so I've seen it time and time again where literally they stop caring about the scale. Or I've had clients that throw it away. They're just, I don't even want to look at this thing.
Yeah,
I feel great. My clothes are fitting different. So,
I would totally agree with that one. Boy, this obsession with the scale is really, it's hurting a lot of people. It really is.
oh,
And
yes.
I'm thinking about the Zig Ziglar quote. He said something like this. I'm not going to get it exact, but he said, "It's not what you gain by reaching your goals; it's who you become in the
Yes.
process." Right. So I think what I hear you saying is, yeah, you might not reach every goal that you set, but the transformation that's going to take place, the self confidence you're going to gain, and the habits that you're going to be implementing in your life, the discipline that you're going to get, is all beneficial. And just be patient. Don't get too caught up on the goal, or in this case, the scale, and focus on the process. And 1% better every day, and that will serve you well over a period of time.
Oh, yes. 100%. And if they just feel, so I always challenge people to say, at the end of the night, imagine that you have to watch a time lapse video of yourself. You sat on your couch, you laid in your lazy boy, or you laid in bed. Before you can watch the movie or go to sleep, you have to watch a fast forwarded video of what you did that day. Would you be proud of the man or woman that you see there? If somebody can have that realization and raw honesty with themselves, and no, we're not saying every day is going to be perfect, but if most of your days you hit the task you said you were going to do and you didn't open up the fridge or order Uber Eats again or do whatever that thing is, they're going to feel so much better where they're not just pushing it off until the holidays and then back to January 1st. So
Yeah.
that self-awareness to face themselves, because it's so rare for people to actually be open to facing themselves.
Mm.
And for some, it's fear, and for others, especially as men, it's pride and ego because they don't want to
Mm.
actually look at the pain. They're like, I'm ready for Friday. The game's Friday. He's got
Mhm.
tickets. But their conscience is like, just stay home, meditate, pray, like just have some you time. They're like, no, I don't want to face it. What time are we meeting?
Yeah.
And they run
So
from it.
what you're talking about is integrity, right? How you behave when no one else is watching, right? And I love
Exactly.
that exercise. Yeah. Watch yourself on a high speed video at the end of the day and say, am I proud of what I did? Am I proud of my decisions? Am I proud of my thought life? Can I walk around with a thought bubble on top of my head and let everybody read it?
Oh, yeah.
I think if we all looked at it that way, we would say, "Hey, might have a little work to do here."
Exactly.
So, um, I do this when I'm setting goals for myself. I tend to set these really lofty goals, and because it's such a lofty goal, it takes time to reach. I can tend to get discouraged because I'm not there yet. So, how would you talk to somebody about? What advice would you have for somebody about setting realistic goals that are attainable, and how you can grow into those more lofty goals?
For sure. So I would recommend that they write down specifically what that goal is and do a quick visualization of that goal. So going deeper than just writing it or speaking it, but if that individual closes their eyes and imagines, if it's financial, them imagining waking up, checking their Chase business account, USA personal, whatever it is, and they can just feel it. What does that give you access to? They can live in a better place, better food, they can travel, they can take their wife on a helicopter flight around New York City, like whatever that thing is, really setting themselves in that visual state where they can utilize their senses, envision, feel, taste, just the experience that that thing could do. And then go into the next goal and just taking their time with it. There's no time limit, just really immersing themselves in what that thing is. And then by the time they open up their eyes and they went through their biggest main goals, then I would recommend that they reverse engineer, as in, okay, let's say January 15th, what do I want to have worked on? Hey, I want to make sure that I'm better at video editing. I need to take a Adobe Premiere course. Okay. What about by end of February? Hey, by end of February, I want to make sure that I have this, but it's still relating to the big goal, but they can break it down into smaller chunks where they're not looking at the whole pie. They're just like, January, I'm focused on this. And then most importantly, they can go to the present day and say, so today we're recording this on a Tuesday. Today's Tuesday. I'm only focused on what's on my agenda. Tomorrow I got to do this. Friday I have a flight. Then I got to do this. My dog. None of that is today. So it's irrelevant.
Mm-hmm.
But basically reverse engineering, focusing on the goal, going backwards, breaking it down into smaller deadlines. And then from there, hyper focusing on the day that they're in. Because if they can win the day, then they'll start to stack wins daily. And it helps to get that person present because they've gotten chills, they've gotten an adrenaline rush, they've gotten goosebumps, they've maybe had tears, envisioning all these goals so deeply where they can feel it inside and out that when it comes to doing the work, they're like, the work is almost irrelevant. It's still going to be hard, but it's going to be simple because they're so crystal clear on what they want, opposed to like a vague statement. I want to be rich, or I just want 2 million, or I want to have a wife and kids. These statements are nice, but they don't actually sit in it and really imagine, like, why do you want that? What do you want to get with that? So if they can take their time to fully envision that and then reverse engineer, and the whole intent is to be more present in the current day because they already know exactly what they want. So nothing is up in the air.
Yeah, that's good. So by reverse engineer, you're saying, okay, if I was the person that I want to be, what steps would I have to take to get from where I am now to get there? And then so breaking this down into smaller chunks, more attainable chunks, and one step at a time, I'll eventually get there.
Oh yes, 100%.
Mm-hmm.
Because then the goal doesn't seem as big. They get caught in the daily action and then that monthly task. And they're like, hey, I'm making small increments. And then every quarter they're like, oh, wow, I'm much better at this skill. And then they kind of surprise themselves and the confidence goes up, opposed to like looking at that goal as scary.
Right.
Because that's a big reason people get deterred from their big goals. They get pushed away from it, or their goals diminish because they're scared of the goal, which is good. You can be fearful of a big goal, but once they don't trust themselves, they're not consistent, or they listen to too many people that also don't have big goals and also don't have discipline and consistency. And then the goal went from up here and started coming down, and they'd say, you know what? Yeah, you know what? I'd be fine doing this. But deep down, they're like, that hurts for you even to say that. Don't do it.
Yeah, I hear you. I'm thinking of another Zig Ziglar quote. He says, you don't have to be great to start, but you have to start to be great. And, and I think that applies here. You know, it's you got some lofty goals. Those are great, man. But don't walk into the gym and look at the guy with the six pack abs and the bulging biceps and say, I'll never get there. Right. You just got to say, hey, that's why I'm here. That's why I'm at the gym. I'm going to take this one day at a time, and I'll reach my goals eventually. It might not be tomorrow, but I'm gonna continue to press on and keep this in my sight, in my headlights, and I'm gonna be moving towards the person I want to become.
Oh yes, 100%.
Yeah, I love it. So, in your experience with your clients, who are the ones that experience the most success? I'm sure there's people that fall off the wagon. But who are the people? What habits do they have that helps them succeed that others don't have?
Great question. So definitely number one. So I have three. The first one is athletes. If they were an athlete as a child, teenager, college, or currently are an athlete, even if they play intramural sports, because they have a competitive advantage. People that played sports, or even if they competed playing chess, it doesn't even have to be physical. They just have that competitive nature. And I just call it that fire. They have the fire inside them. You
Mm-hmm.
can always sense who does. Because any little thing, you could be at a restaurant and somebody said, "You can eat that burger?" They're like, "Challenge accepted. I'm going to get my picture on the wall." Like they turn everything into a competition from like the smallest thing, but that person has that fire.
Yeah.
So if they have the guidance, the tools, and the support and accountability, they're golden. They're like, "Okay, so do this, and I get calls with you, and you're going to give me this resources." Like, okay, let's do it. And they're all in, and they make
Mm.
amazing results and really fast. It's because they already have that fire in them. Person two is people that were in sales currently or in the past. Maybe they didn't play sports. Maybe they didn't play an instrument. Maybe they didn't do competitive cheerleading or whatever the case may be, but they were driven by finances and money, or they just used to be really shy and then they're like, I have to overcome this. I'm putting myself into sales positions, and they got really good. So they also have that fire. It's a different competitive level, but they're also ready and open to work hard. And then person three is somebody who has been through tons of trauma and they're sick and tired of being sick and tired. And they're like, I'll do whatever it takes. I've never been into sports. I've never been into sales. I've never done any of this. I'm aware that I need to change. What can I do? Whatever you lay out for me, I will do, because I don't even want to waste time going on Google. I used to. They got overwhelmed on YouTube because this guy says eat liver, this guy says go vegan, this lady says don't do that because that's bad for the liver, and then they're like, "Can you just show me what to do? I'm overwhelmed."
Yeah. Well,
So
I think I'm seeing a common denominator here to the three people you're pointing out, and that is this person. Like you might not have done sports, so you might not have had any experience in sales, but we've all had some trauma, right? No one gets
yes,
through life without some trauma. But we've all, for most of us anyway, here in the U.S. or Germany, we went to school. And maybe we had a teacher that was an inspiration to us, and I think
yes,
the common denominator is that you're willing to listen to someone's advice and take it to heart and not be offended and say, yeah, this person says I have a weakness here, and that's an area of development for me, and I'm going to work on that, and be able to take that advice and turn it into tangible action. Does that make sense?
yes, yes, 100%. Because
Yeah.
then they have clarity. Those are my favorite moments in conversations, is when you can see someone's light bulb going off. They're just
Yeah.
like, and in my head, I'm like, yes, we got it.
Yes,
We
got
got
it.
it. Like,
Got it.
every single moment the light bulb goes off, because I just wait for that text or that message days later. They're like, hey, just giving you a heads up. I did this at work, or I did this with my social anxiety at the banquet, whatever their personal thing was, but I could just sense it. And then on
Nice.
our next session, I'm like, I saw when it clicked, and they're like, why didn't you say anything? I'm like, because I got to let you sit in it. I
Yeah.
saw the light bulb go off, but you got to have your moment.
That's
And I
so
look forward
cool.
to those texts and calls where I'm like, yes, I knew something was going to happen. I don't know what exactly, but it clicked.
I know exactly what you're talking about because I was a flight instructor many years ago, and the nothing thrilled me more than seeing the light bulb come on for a student. They had the motivation; they wanted to learn how to fly, and but it's a challenging task. Learning how to fly is a complex thing. Flying an airplane, whether it's a small airplane or a big
Oh, yeah.
airplane, it's a complex task, and you've got to take it a step at a time. And man, when you saw the light bulb come on, when I saw the light bulb come on for the student, man, that was a thrill for me. And again, just like you,
Oh, yeah.
I wouldn't say light bulb moment, I wouldn't do that, but I would just have this inner joy in saying, yeah, what we're
Oh, yes.
doing here is making a difference. And I know the next time we hop in the airplane, he's gonna or she's gonna do better, and they do. It all
Exactly.
starts coming together for them. That's really great. Yeah.
And that's my favorite thing about it, is after that, the positive ripple effect. Everyone that's within their vicinity or in their circle or family, they feel that person's confidence and energy or
Yeah.
pride, whatever it is,
Uh-huh.
and it just ripples in a positive way. So I
Hmm.
feel like if people can create more positive ripple effects for others, we could change the world at scale,
Yeah.
because it's already happening in reverse. The second we open our phone or turn the TV on or do whatever, it's like negativity, negativity,
Mm.
negativity.
Say that again.
But
Yeah.
spreading that positive ripple effect is an amazing feeling.
Yeah. Well, that leads me right into my next question is what role do our friends and family and our relationships play in helping us reach our goals? I know there can be people that are negative and they're pulling us down. So,
Yes.
what could you speak to that a little bit?
Yes, for sure. So our environment plays a major role. And for some, they have the discipline, work ethic, the heart, the drive. They have all the traits, but their environment, their negative mom, their negative uncle, their spouse,
Hmm.
their friend that they've been friends with since they were 6 years old, but they don't realize that they are the dead weight.
Yeah.
So they're holding on to all these things, whether they live with them or don't, or if they're just in contact. It could even just be digitally. Whoever we message and FaceTime and whatever else on our apps, they can be holding us back as well, because sometimes it's just fluff talk or just comedy or just sports. It's nothing meaningful. So I would challenge that person to really just audit their circle. And they're not going to tell these people this, but if they write down, who do you speak to and or message most often? And they're like, all right, Uncle Jimmy, this person, one of my clients, this, whoever it is,
Hmm.
the 5 to 10 people they message or speak to the most, or maybe even hang out with. And then from there, they can say, what are their traits? Do they pour in my cup? Am I just pouring into theirs? And just going through it. I have a deeper process on that. But if they're just at a surface level, audit their circle, they know, but usually they try to like overshadow it. They're like, well, we've been friends for 12 years. Well, we've been dating for 8 years.
Yeah.
But if they just look at the facts and the way that they feel about the person, historical data overrides emotions and feelings. So if they can just say, hey, does this person only come around when they need something? Or are you super excited about a goal and their response is negative or just like blah?
Yeah.
To I can speak for myself, is that was one of my biggest pet peeves with people. Is I would say, hey man, I just got this and this, I just had an idea, or I just got a certification. Friends or family back then would say, oh well, we can't all be lucky, I'm a blah, blah, blah,
Hmm.
blah. Those kind of statements, it would give me rage inside. And I was like, and then I just stopped telling people, and I said, you know what, I can't be angry at them. Younger version was very angry, but the more mature and older I got, I realized, you know what, I can't I can expect somebody to be as excited about my goals if they're not even excited about their goals in their life.
Hmm.
So this is my fault for even bringing it up to somebody who's not even excited about anything in their life, and
Yeah.
not judging, but it's like it's hard to bring excited energy and a flame to somebody that's just like been low for a long time.
Hmm.
And then in reverse, who's that friend that does give you the same energy when you are excited? Or in reverse, with a negative thing, if you call him or her, will they actively listen and not cut you off? Because sometimes we just need to be a good listener, where we're not asking for advice. We just, our friends or family can sense it and they're like, he just needs to rant for 10 minutes. It's not going to make any sense. And at the end, I feel good. Thanks for listening. I'll see you
Right.
next
Yeah.
month.
Well, when it comes to those negative people in our lives, I don't think it's malicious for the most part. I think it's just really out of ignorance.
Oh, yeah.
People just don't know how to support another person real well. So, would you say that it's possible to take a friend, let's say that lifelong friend from kindergarten, who tends to be either neutral or a downer, and can you help that person be more positive with you and supporting you and your goals by teaching them how to do that? Is that possible?
Yes, it is, but it's 50-50 because not everyone's open to it. Some are
Yeah.
your friend, but your progress or successes shines a light on their missed opportunities, laziness, lack of discipline, whatever relates to them.
Hmm.
But if that person is open and can push pride and ego aside, then it could be amazing because they can grow along the journey with them. So I
Hmm.
always like to think of I love music, so I love listening and watching interviews of the top artists. Even if I don't listen to their music much, I just love the journey. And same thing with pro athletes, who has been there with them most of the time and who wasn't. And they realize the people that were with them were just open to change
Yeah.
and to get skills. So 10 years ago, this guy knew nothing about finances, and now his best friend is his accountant. And they crush it together. Like stories like that, I love. So
Yeah.
his friend was open for change and said, we can work as a team. And others, they're no longer in your life, whether it's family or friends, you have to fade away from them because they don't want to change or they don't want to bring anything to the table. So I do believe it is true, but it's definitely 50-50 if that person's open to it. But it also depends on how we approach the person. Because sometimes people approach it in a needy way or in a selfish way, and they don't mean it.
Yeah.
And then the person feels it that way. So an example, a clear statement somebody could say to that individual is, hey man, I've been thinking we've been friends for 12 years, and I just want to say I appreciate you doing XYZ for me back in 2008, back when we were 15 years old. Remember that memory? Man, had an amazing relationship. But I've noticed that lately you've been acting this way. And when you act that way, I feel this way. But whenever you are more consistent with your workouts and etc., you act like the guy I've always known. Does that make any sense? And you ask that person, like, does that make any sense? And you're kind of just putting it out there, but
Mm-hmm.
you're always starting it off in a positive way. Like, thank you for these 10 experiences or ways that you had my back.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're calmer, they're more open without saying, hey, David, can we talk? Hey, David,
You're doing some
can we
things that
meet up?
annoy me. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
exactly. And everybody's like, everybody, not everybody, but the majority of people are going to instantly think, oh, it's going to be negative.
Mm-hmm.
So people just have to be more strategic about how they approach a conversation.
Yeah.
And we're not just stroking somebody's ego. We're authentically being honest. It's like, you helped me with this, this, and this. And I noticed that you're in a great mental place when you take care of yourself here, and we're good. But lately, I've noticed you've done less of the gym and more of the drinking. And in hindsight, it's making me feel like a distant. I just want to make sure that our friendship doesn't like go to waste. Does that make any sense? And in that moment, that person will more than likely say, you know what, it does, because they've been thinking these things. They
Yeah.
just haven't verbalized it.
Right.
So we can be the gateway of the conversation, just being strategic, playing chess with our words,
Mm-hmm.
rather than the basic, hey man, can we talk? And then
Yeah.
it's like,
Yeah.
that's just going to turn into an argument, even just that sentence.
Well, my wife and I have been leading marriage groups for about 13 years now, and it's based on a book called Intimate Encounters by Dr. David Ferguson. And one of the things he talks about in there is the truth in love. Sometimes we can share the truth, but it be without love, and it can come across very harsh. Or we can share the truth in love, and it can come across as building somebody up. For instance, husband's been working late every week, and he's been coming home at 7, 8, 9 p.m., and the wife's getting tired of it. And she could choose to say, you've been coming home late from work for the past 2 weeks, and I'm sick of it. She could say that, be pure criticism with truth without love.
Oh, yes.
Or she could say, I know you're working really hard to support the family. You've been putting in a lot of hours at work, and I've been missing you. Do you think maybe we could plan a date this Friday? Totally different tone, right?
Oh, yeah.
And I think we could use the tone, that same tone, with somebody that we want to help support us in our goals. Say, hey, I've got this goal here. It's challenging for me. I got to tell you, I'm being stretched by this. And, I really appreciate our friendship. And if you could support me in that and hold me accountable, maybe you could call me every Monday afternoon or Monday evening, or let's say at the end of the week, Friday night, and ask me how I'm doing on those goals. That would help me a lot. I think most people
Oh,
would
yeah.
be open to something like that.
Exactly. 100%. Because they'd be open to be that accountability. And then also internally, they're like, oh, yeah, that means they're going to hold me accountable, even if they don't say it. And it makes them want to just get better together. Because I think
Right.
that's the best thing.
That would be ideal.
Relationships.
If you both
Oh, yeah.
had the desire to reach a goal, or improve self improvement, and you both had that common goal, that would be the ideal, right?
Oh, yes. 100%.
Yeah,
And
for
that's what I
sure.
love about it, is just seeing people that are open to change in a positive way together.
Hmm.
Because that's how you create the dream team, marriage, relationships, friendships, Salesforce team, whatever somebody has.
Hmm.
But it's just amazing to see teams or couples that are a cohesive unit. You can just feel and sense their energy. You see them in public at the table, you're like, oh yeah,
Hmm.
they dominate whatever they do. And
Yeah,
then it's the opposite. Everybody else at the table is like this. Oh no,
yeah,
I was listening. Scrolling. You're like, whoa, everybody's tapped out.
yeah. I hear you. Well, Derek, we're running out of time here. So, if you could summarize some of the highlights of what we talked about today, what are the more important things you'd like to leave people with today?
Yes, for sure. So I would challenge an individual to 100% do this. Get a sheet of paper and a pen and write out an eliminate sheet. That eliminate sheet will consist of what are things that you could get rid of or simply replace with something better that will help you make more progress. The first couple will be very straightforward. Hey, I need less sugar. Hey, I need a less scroll. And then start to go deeper. Really take your time with it. Don't give yourself a time limit, but just exhaust all avenues of approach and really look at it. So my past example was anger. I've always been a positive person, but I would hold it in. I would hold in emotions and I would feel tense. And so one of the best pieces of advice that I ever got was my senior year in high school. My English composition teacher pulled me out of the class. I'm just writing a paper, pulled me into the hallway, looked me in my eye, and said, "Derick, it's okay to be human." I don't know what that statement did. I cried in his arms for like 5 minutes straight.
Wow.
And he didn't even know what was happening. He could just sense that something was up.
Mm.
And that sticks out to me so much. It's okay to be human. And that was coming from a male to another male who could sense the energy was off.
Mm.
And I just literally was just like 5 minutes straight, like sobbing. And after that, we just laughed together. He's like, "You good? Let's drink some water." And we went back in the classroom.
Wow.
And I was like, was that 10 years that just came out?
Wow. That's
So
something
maybe,
else.
so going back to the eliminate, maybe the anger or that ball you have in your chest, maybe you just need to release some emotions.
Mhm.
So that way you're not walking around feeling like you're about to boil and somebody's the icing on the cake. So what can you eliminate, release, or get rid of that'll give you more clarity so you can have more control of what you're trying to pursue before you
Excellent.
add anything to it?
Excellent. Very good. Derick, you dropped a lot of truth bombs on Natural Nation today. That's really good stuff. So if someone is resonating with this message and they want to get a hold of you and work with you, what's the best way to do that?
The best way to find me would be at fitwithderick.com, Derick. The only right way to spell Derick. And on social media is fitwithderick2. And my whole intent with social media is just to plant seeds. If somebody hits snooze too many times, they're going to see a video about hitting the snooze button. If somebody's struggling with something, they're going to see something, and it's just going to plant a seed to attack that thing. And on my website, they'll see real people with real results, pictures and videos, and the videos of them speaking about their transformation, their journey through life, whatever their struggle was. But I feel like that's the best part of social media, bringing the social aspect back. Real people, real results, real conversations.
I love it. I've been to your website, and you've got some great before and after pictures with some of your clients. And there's something you're doing with your clients that's working. It's because you've got some visual evidence there on your website. I'll try to put a couple of those on the video version of the podcast here.
Thank you. And I appreciate you having me, David. It's been a pleasure to have a good, solid conversation.
Yeah, likewise. I appreciate you taking the time and dropping all the truth bombs. Derick, thank you for being here.
Thank you.
For more, go to the show notes page at davidsandstrom.com/129. There you can find links to all the resources that we mentioned, as well as a video and an audio version of the podcast and more. If you're thinking about New Year's resolutions, it might be time to think about getting some quality supplements. I've arranged a 10% discount for life at my partner FullScript. They sell quality, professional-grade supplements that you can only get through a practitioner. And you don't want to get fooled into buying your supplements from a warehouse club or the local drugstore. Get quality when you supplement. Go to my website, davidsandstrom.com/FullScript, create an account using my link, and you'll lock in a 10% discount for life. If you're getting value out of the show, would you tell a friend about it? Natural and holistic health from a biblical perspective is pretty hard to come by, and I'll bet your friend would appreciate you letting them know about the show, and you'd help me spread the word and get this valuable information into more people's hands. Thank you for listening. I appreciate you. I'll talk with you next time. Be blessed.